Hey guys, Nischal here, back with another video. Today we're going to be looking at how laws are made. This is a political science video, part 1. We're going to be looking at how laws are made in the United States of America. So without any further ado, let's get started. Before we dive too deep into the lesson, there are a few important terminology and keywords that must be understood before moving any further. First of all, a law. Law is a system of rules that must be followed or abided by every single citizen in a country, region, state, or anything. A bill is a draft of a law. So in the lawmaking process, there's a drafting committee which creates a bill, and they send that bill for further inspection and voting and approval. So a bill is a draft of a law. The House of Representatives and the Senate are the two chambers of the U.S. Congress. They play a significant role in the lawmaking process in the United States of America. Veto is a term used when the president prevents any bill from moving further towards becoming a law. The drafting committee, as I mentioned earlier, draws up or creates the bill of a law, the draft of a law. The president is the final character in the lawmaking process. He gives his approval. He can either give his assent or he can veto, and then steps can be taken after that. Then we have the Supreme Court, which determines the constitutional validity of every single law that passes. And finally, the Constitution, the guiding values of any country or region that must be followed by everyone to maintain a degree of trust and coordination. Any new laws are added to the Constitution. So just to review, the House of Representatives and Senate are both part of Congress. So if I ever refer to Congress, unless I specify, you should be thinking of these two chambers. So the three organs of government, each of these organs play a significant role in making a law. So we have the legislative, which makes the laws, the executive implements the laws, and the judicial branch, they check the constitutional validity of the laws. And most modern democracies are following this three-organ system. And to prevent any organ from gaining too much power, there's a system of checks and balances. So if the legislative organ is making a decision that is not in favor of executive or judicial, they can immediately veto that proposed law. So the system of checks and balances allows a country or government to maintain its democracy and preventing too much power, too much uncontrolled power that is concentrated into one hand. So all three of these play a significant role. We have the legislative, which actually create the law, and they discuss, they edit the law, and then they vote on it, and they send to the executive leader, the President of the United States of America, and the President makes a decision on whether this law should be passed and added to the Constitution, or whether he sends it back to Congress. And finally, judicial, it's like the last step. It checks if this law has to comply with the Constitution, because the Constitution is the legal document that supersedes everything. So if any new law doesn't comply with the terms and regulations, you can say, of the Constitution, then it will not be permitted. So now let's move on to the actual process. Step 1. Every law begins with an idea, and this idea it could be based on an impending issue, global or national, societal changes, and civil unrest. So drastic times call for drastic measures, you could say, and at this time new laws can be proposed by the Congress. So step 1 is an idea. This idea could be proposed by the Congress, or the President, the White House, officials, or even the people themselves. Step 2. A bill is drawn up by the drafting committee of Congress. So as I mentioned earlier, a bill is a draft of a law, and they're usually given a name. You can see here HR 201, so this must be the 201st bill of the House of Representatives. So a bill is a draft law, and the drafting committee drafts or draws up or writes the bill. So, step 3. The bill is introduced to Congress by either the House of Representatives or the Senate. And when the bill is introduced, there's several debates. You can make some edits. And step 4, as I mentioned, there's a debate in Congress between the House of Representatives and the Senate. So the House is actually the lower house, or lower chamber, and the Senate is the upper chamber. So usually new bills are introduced in the House, and then they're voted on in the House, and they move on to the Senate. So after they're debating and they make edits, there's a voting procedure in the House first and then the Senate. And if this bill is voted on in the House of Representatives and the Senate, then it moves on to the final step. It goes to the President of the United States. So once it's sent to the President, the final decision of whether this bill should become a law, it lies in the hands of the President. Now this could go two ways. Either the President could give his assent, meaning that this bill would officially become a law, or he could veto. So it's sent back to Congress. So just to give you a better idea of what happens when it reaches the President can give his assent, or he can veto. So we can look at both scenarios here. If the President gives his assent, if he approves this bill, the law is added to the Constitution of the United States of America. Whereas if the President vetoes, the bill is sent back to Congress, and they can make some edits to make it more constitutional validity, or they can override the veto by having both chambers vote, and if we have 2/3 of the votes in the House and Senate, then the veto will be officially overridden, and this bill would be a law. So the final step, the bill eventually becomes a law one way or the other, and it's added to the Constitution of the United States of America. Summary. So I just want to give you a quick rundown of everything that happened from step 1, the idea. Step 2, we had to draft a bill. Step 3, this bill was introduced to Congress by either the House or the Senate. Step 4, there's voting in both houses of Congress. Step 5, the bill is sent to the President. Step 6, the President can either give his assent or veto. If the President gives his assent, the bill becomes a law. Whereas if the President vetoes, the bill is sent back to Congress, but they can override with 2/3 of the votes in both chambers. And finally, the bill becomes a law. So I just wanted to give you a couple of practice questions to get a better understanding. So what is a preliminary version of a legal document called? Preliminary version or draft of a legal document called? The answer is a bill. Who creates a bill? I'll give you a few seconds to think. So the drafting committee creates the bill. Next question. Feel free to answer these questions on your own. Pause the video and post your score in the comments. What is the next step after the Senate and House of Representatives vote on a bill? The bill is sent to the President to make the final call. Number 4. Fill in the blank. Congress can override the President's veto by getting blank of the votes in both chambers, Senate and House of Representatives. The answer is they have to get 2/3 of the votes. So in the Senate, this would be something like 67 votes. In the House, maybe about somewhere over 300 votes, 350. So final question. This wasn't discussed in this video. It will be discussed in the next video. But props to you if you're actually able to get this right. So the 4th unofficial organ of the government is A, Supreme Court, B, local government bodies, C, the media, or D, the President. So the answer is C, the media. I didn't discuss this topic in this video. It'll be in the next video, but if anyone did get this right, let's have a round of applause for them. So, I just want to give you a quick blueprint of the next video. We're going to talk about lawmaking in other countries other than the United States. So, parliamentary democracy structure, and how you make laws in these type of parliamentary democracies like India or the UK. We'll also be talking about what a bicameral legislature is, and the fourth organ of the government, which is the media. We'll be talking about all of these topics in the next video, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching. As always, I really appreciate the recent support. Until the next video.